Turn your mind on and your TV off. It's time to hear the real truth behind what's really going on. Join Tia Severino, an advocate for truth, freedom, and spiritual growth, as she explores the real story behind what we are made to believe on her show, The People's Truth. In the next hour, you'll be exposed to shocking revelations, to lies you have believed in all your life. Together with her guests, she will unravel the facts behind the current events, health, wellness, faith, justice, and more. As Orwell said, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Join the conversation, leave a comment, or call in live 678-495-4345. Don't forget to like, share, and help spread the great message out. And now, here's Tia Severino.
Hello, and welcome to The People's Truth, where we dig deep into the issues that are really affecting our world. I'm your host, Tia Severino, and in this episode, we are going to be discussing the psychology of oppression, people's willing march into totalitarian control. If you're anything like me, the last several months have seemed like a bizarre dream. Watching the entire globe shut down over a mysterious virus that appeared out of nowhere. That is, unless you've been paying attention. After all, didn't Fauci say in 2017 that Trump would face a surprise pandemic during his presidency? It seems like Bill Gates had an idea this was coming too, considering last October he held Event 201, which modeled a coronavirus pandemic and handed out little coronavirus plushies to attendants. There's more, of course, but the point is that these globalist elites have been planning for what is happening right now for a very long time. If you know where to look, you can see them telling the world what they are going to do. Now, why on earth, you ask, would they tell us what they're planning? The answer to that question is a very deep rabbit hole. You see, it has to do with the fact that the elites believe that they rule by consent. They have to tell us what they're doing, and if we don't revolt, they believe they have our consent. So they tell us what they're doing through their Hollywood movies and their television shows, through the mainstream media, through music, video games, printed materials. They tell us through their documents, their patents, their laws, their books, their fiction and nonfiction. They tell us through education and academia. They tell us through science and history, and especially through war. It is a constant barrage of information, and we receive it consciously, subconsciously, and unconsciously. We are surrounded by so much information in so many forms, including ones we can't even perceive without a device to receive, like EMF, microwave, radio, satellite. It's 24/7. We have no way to tune it out. But one thing I've found extremely unsettling is how compliant people have become in such a short period of time. But is it really all because of the events of the last 6 months? Or have we as a people on this planet been slowly led to this place for longer than we realize? That's exactly what I want to talk to my guest, Henna Marie, today about. Her name is Henna Marie, and I came across a video she did a couple of weeks ago. I was captured by her voice and what she had to say. I just want you to listen to a little bit from the beginning and the end of that video. Let's listen to that clip.
Hello. This message is to all of you agents of illusory authority. This is to all of you who are sitting at the top of your illegitimate structures of power, claiming to have the right to rule over us and to make your own laws. But the winds of change are blowing. And I've got news for you. We are far more intelligent than you realize. We know there's a cure. There's always a cure, because that is how Mother Nature works. We know you play a dirty game, and that you do not hesitate to use whatever means possible to try to achieve your agenda, which is total control over humanity. We know you will try to introduce a false savior, a fake solution for all of us, in order to steer us away from taking personal responsibility for our lives and our health. But this will never come to pass, as we are waking up by the millions. And we are beginning to take back that which is rightfully ours. Our lives, our liberties, and our livelihoods. We are sovereign beings with creator consciousness. And the power of even a handful of us who are guided by love and truth far surpasses the potential of your agents of psychopathic, parasitic, machine consciousness. Truth is coming out, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Love will prevail, and the light will win.
Wow, huh? Wow, is that amazing? Now you see why I had to get her on to interview. Henna Maria is an activist, speaker, writer, and practitioner of sacred healing arts, which she learned with the Shipibo, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Shipibo tribe in the Amazon rainforest, along with her husband, Richard. Together, they now run Wisdom Origins Healing Sanctuary. In 2019, Henna founded the peace organization Dawn of Peace. Her activism focuses on educating people about the spiritual reality of life, human and animal rights, medical freedom, and sovereignty. In 2020, Henna became one of the co-creators of the Summer of Light movement for health, freedom, and harmony. So, Henna, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tia. Such a gift to have connected with you. And thank you for having me on the show.
Can't hear. Hold on. Okay, it was my headphones. I got it now. Let's try that again. Hi, Henna.
Hi, Tia. Thank you for having me on the show. It's such a gift to connect with you.
Too loud. Whew, now they're blasting my ears. We'll get all this technical stuff worked out. Don't you folks worry. It wouldn't be a show if we didn't have technical stuff going on. So happy to have you on the show today. So, Henna, we're going to be talking about totalitarian manipulation methods, what they do, right? Mm-hmm. Ruling by consent, like I was speaking about earlier, how they steal our consent, bypassing our free will. We're going to talk about intimidation techniques, isolation techniques, cult isolation techniques, mind control. I'm going to let you get started. You certainly have a lot of wonderful things to say, so help me understand how do they steal our consent?
Yeah, that's interesting because, of course, nobody in their right mind would willingly do something that is harming themselves, right? So it has to do with the fact that we believe that they have our best interest at heart. So this is like you were saying in your introduction, this has been going on for centuries and centuries. And so we've come to this place where we are constantly fed conflicting information. So we're given half-truths mixed with outright lies to keep us in a perpetuated state of confusion. And we believe that we don't actually have a choice. We believe we're born into a system with certain laws and certain rulers, mm-hmm. and that we must comply with the system. When the truth is that they've led us to believe that that is the case, but it's not true, because we are actually sovereign beings. And so if we understand natural law, which is the spiritual law that governs the realm of our consciousness and the realm of morality, we can begin to understand what it means when we talk about authority. Mm-hmm. These earthly authorities are literally beings who have authored their power. They've created it. It's not something that they were born with, because we were all born equal in our rights, in our worth. Mm-hmm. And so the foundation of all of their institutions and organizations are 100% unlawful in the face of natural law, and immoral for that reason, because we should all be free to live our lives as long as we respect each other and follow those fundamental core beliefs and values that we all cherish so much, like love and peace and freedom. So, but because we believe that somehow we owe our consent to them, we believe in this structure of hierarchy, we acquiesce, and that is how we comply with these dehumanizing decrees and laws that we give our free will to them. And that's how we step under their rulership. And as you were saying, their agendas, their work is always in plain sight, in symbology, in terminology. And I'd like to just highlight that the term lockdown, that the primary definition of lockdown, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is the confinement of prisoners to their cells for all or most of the day as a temporary security measure. Mm-hmm. And then according to the American Heritage Dictionary, lockdown means it's a facility such as a prison where people considered to be dangerous are locked inside living quarters or otherwise confined. Mm. So what's happened is that they've criminalized normal, healthy, peaceful people. Mm-hmm. And we've accepted that because of the programming that is in us. We believe that these measures are valid and justified because we believe in this hierarchy that they've created. Mm-hmm. And what I'd like to just ask is, we have all these technologies now, the facial recognition technology and contact tracing apps, that how come these things are not being used to track down, for example, human trafficking rings or pedophile rings?
Right.
Wouldn't that be a great idea? No, instead, they're being used to intimidate us, mm-hmm. us normal, healthy, peaceful people. And we are constantly feeling like suspects, right? Like here in Spain, you go to an outdoors market and you got police officers there looking at you. Are you keeping your distance? Are you wearing your mask? Mm. So they're intimidating us by making us feel like we are criminals. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the cult isolation techniques is very interesting. Anyone who wants to research that, known cult isolation techniques, I'm just going to read to you the main ones that are known. Entrapment, physical isolation, mental isolation, control of media through information control and censorship. We all know in the truth movement how many doctors are being censored right now and during the whole pandemic. Mm. Social confirmation, meaning everyone has to conform to certain code of conduct, certain behaviors. Excluding contrary thinking. Polarization, meaning if you don't wear a mask, you want to kill my grandmother, this kind of mentality. And then guilt through coercion and shaming. Mm. These are all cult isolation techniques. So how is this a response to a supposed health threat? Mm. And then on top of that, of course, you have the mind control techniques, which is one of them is repetition. So if you are around the clock being bombarded with the same imagery of the map of the earth that has gone red, mm-hmm. And you see these graphs, mm-hmm. These, curves, you forget that someone's programmed that. Right. And you begin to take it in as reality. Right. And you're not being fed anything about the overall mortality rate or comparisons to previous years. Mm-hmm. So all of this is this imagery that kind of begins to take hold in our subconscious mind, and it codes our reality. And when they do that, it also, of course, codes the way that we behave and the way that we relate to one another.
Yep. Wow. That is a really, I love the way that you've put that all together in a very understandable format. We're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, you guys, we're gonna talk about slave mentality. That is how we accept their bullying. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
At Heiser Orthodontics, we understand that your smile is a big deal for both kids and adults. We have the latest technology and state-of-the-art equipment. But honestly, what makes us unique is our patient experience. And we are not the only people saying this.
Heiser Orthodontics is amazing.
Superb.
Trustworthy.
Compassionate. A friendly place where they know what they're doing, and that's what I like about it.
We are a family-owned private practice where kids are valued, parents have a voice, and the entire Heiser team puts the patient first. Discover the Heiser Orthodontics difference. Call 470-330-9083 for a free consultation today.
Welcome back to The People's Truth with Tia Severino. My guest is Hina Maria, and we've been talking about psychology of oppression. In this segment, we are going to discuss slave mentality, how we accept their bullying. The origins of that stem from unhealed trauma, psychological factors, ancestral wounds from cultural humiliation, and programming. Now, Hina, explain what you mean when you say that the origins of slave mentality comes from unhealed trauma and ancestral wounds.
Yeah, so if we look into our history, we can see how people with strong culture, with strong family bonds, people with freedom, like the indigenous, have been persecuted for millennia. So there is this culture of this kind of predatorial class of people that want to control everybody. So those who have been the strong ones have always been under attack. So we've been programmed by having to witness people who stand for truth and freedom being punished and tortured. You know, we all know the persecution of people who knew how natural medicine works. That happened, you know, in the Middle Ages. How people of different faiths or ethnicities have been culled, and this is still happening. For example, in the Amazon rainforest. The wars, the famine, it's a continuous ancestral trauma that we haven't had the space to heal from because we've been made into these industrial producing agents. So our humanity is being crushed. And I feel like there's this moral spine that has been crushed because we've been shown that if you don't follow what this predatorial ruling class wants, you will be punished.
Right.
And so we've been programmed to obey through violence and coercion. And so that is like the kind of history of what we hold in our DNA, in our ancestry and our bloodline. But then there's also the more modern woundings from dysfunctional family dynamics. You know, a lot of us, because of this ancestral wounding, have parents who may be abusive or, you know, emotionally unavailable, neglecting.
Right.
And so when we grow up in such an environment, we get this unworthiness program, lack of self-respect, and we grow to believe that respect your elders, even if they are abusive.
Right.
So we begin to allow others to bully us, and it kills our incentive to defend our rights because we believe that we're not worth anything better.
Right, right. Well,
So-
it's true what you're saying. When we're young, we try to resist the authority at that point being our parents. We try to resist the authority, but because we're small and we're weak, we fail. And so we learn to submit to authority. So we first learn to submit to the authority of parent, and then we learn to submit to the authority of the tribe, the community, the larger family, the school, the authorities, and now what we're seeing playing out here in America with the police brutality, which has really been put under a microscope. And just for the sake of saying this, you know, when you take a microscope and you zoom way in on something, there's a lot of information that you're excluding in order to get that close-up view. But we're seeing this in America, and people are saying, well, we have all this ancestral wound from slavery because we had the American colonists kept slaves, and the early Americans kept slaves. They were not all just people of color, by the way. I think there was more Irish slaves than ever were African slaves, but that wound is very fairly fresh for us as a country, and we try to pretend that slavery was ended with the Civil War. Well, if you're paying attention, you know that slavery never ended, and it never even ended legally. In fact, I think the language was unless you are in prison, as in, you know, basically you can become a slave if you end up in the prison system. So
Right.
yeah, so there's modern slavery, and so I'm sorry, I want to let you go back to speaking, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that because I felt like that was a good point to make there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, you know, we can easily identify with these stories because they resonate with our own personal unhealed traumas. So the trap in that is to live in this state of victimhood,
Right?
you know, and it can be something that is purposefully blown out of proportion because, of course, there are so many ways that people are being discriminated and oppressed because the entire system is built on oppression. Every single nation has been built on the blood of the indigenous people. So we got to remember that, you know, it's not just a war against people of color. It's war against people with rich culture. Right. That is the underlying thing. And I feel like if people could, you know, shift their perspective to think that we are somehow less, and that's why they're bullying us, is no, we are strong, and that's why we are a threat to them, and that's why it's happening. Right. But so then, because we have this, you know, emotional void, so many of us from broken families, we look for acceptance. It becomes this unconscious program where we're almost like we're stuck in like a role of a toddler socially, where we are fear of being punished if we're misbehaving, you know, and we're looking for that, you know, approval from these abusive parental figures like daddy big government or mama modern medicine, which are highly abusive and dehumanizing. But it's this belief in these, you know, respect your elders kind of mentality, even if they are abusive, that leads us to continue to be in an abusive relationship. Nobody's telling us, you know, you are worthy. You are a sovereign, actually. You have creator consciousness. You don't need to follow this. So we don't believe that we have a choice, which is why we continue to stay in these abusive scenarios, abusive relationships.
Wow, and that happens on the microcosm in interpersonal relationships and on the macrocosm in societal relationships and dysfunction. It's all a big dysfunction. We're all just one big dysfunctional family, everybody. I mean, that's what it boils down to. So we all, almost everyone that I know of has wounds. You know, even people that grew up in the quote unquote perfect family still have, and maybe they're the most messed up, honestly, because of the facade that gets created of everything's okay, everything's perfect. You know, we can't let anybody on the outside know how dysfunctional we really are. But we've all in some way been broken, and so we allow this illegitimate power structure to. And in a way, we almost are like, you know, if you go to the Bible, the Israelites wanted a king. They wanted a king. They wanted to be like the people around them. They had done just fine with judges and priests, but they wanted a king. And God was like, are you sure? Because, you know, the king thing, you know, it's kind of a murky little deal. Are you sure? And they're like, oh, we really want a king. And so God gave him Saul. Hey, you know, and so, but we want someone to lead us. Well, not everybody does. Some of us want to lead, but most people don't. Most people want to be told what to do. They want to be given directions. And we are brought up that way. The school systems, it's all, I call the public school system state-sponsored indoctrination camps for children, which is what they are. And if you can, get your kids out of them because they're not. They're turning into robots, okay? And, you know, they can't even, they scream about science, over here, but then they want to say that biology isn't what it is. Like there's more than one gender. No, there's not. Biologically, there's two genders. Okay, there are some rare genetic deformities, but usually that's not the norm. So really, biology is what it is. And people are probably going to go after me for that. That's just me. I'm just saying life was a little bit simpler when I was growing up. We just didn't have to deal with any of that kind of stuff. So going back,
you know what I'd like to add into the leadership you mentioned about the leaders.
Yes,
and I feel that's an important topic to talk about because
leaders, yes.
Leaders are good if it's based on mutual respect. You know, a good leader is in service to the people that they're representing.
Right.
And you can't demand respect. Respect has to be earned.
Right.
And a true leader has earned that place because people genuinely feel in their hearts that they are there for them. They're serving them. So another interesting thing is that is in our mentality of you know, acquiescing to these things is that every time you see riots, you see that the reporters use the word, "This is anarchy," and they're showing you chaos, okay? The chaos doesn't mean anarchy. Anarchy means without rulers, without control, but it doesn't mean without leaders or without rules. Right. Anarchy simply means that you are your own sovereign leader of your own life. Right. But because this constant programming of making anarchy equal chaos, people actually become afraid of freedom. Because as soon as you mention to them the word anarchy, they think violence, rioting, looting. Oh no, we can't do that. So we believe that we need someone to govern us because we are somehow so prone to violence. When that's not the case at all. You know, if we truly knew our true self, you know, which is we all inhabit that creator consciousness, and we are all, you know, in resonance with love. That is our true nature: compassion, creativity. That's who we are. But because of this mentality of having been, you know, programmed with trauma through millennia, we've come to believe that the image of war is who we truly are. Right. When that's not it at all. That's a symptom of the infection, which is this predatorial, you know, ruling class. That's not us. Right.
Well, when I see what's going on right now, which they refer to as anarchy or anarchists, actually what I'm seeing is Marxism. I'm seeing where with Germany, they tore down the country from within, meaning Hitler hired thugs in the streets to burn down the Reichstag and to cause havoc, and then promised peace if he was granted extraordinary power. Here, what's happening in the United States is they're coming from the outside, and they're trying to, I think, provoke Trump into declaring martial law and bringing the military in to shut it down so that they can say, aha, you see, he's a dictator. Wow. So let me see. We do want to take a quick break, but you don't want to go away, because when we come back, we're going to be talking about awakening to reality, like what is required for us to wake up. So you want to catch that when we come back.
Hi, I'm Greta Full, President of Golden Home Services, a premier private home care service for seniors in Georgia for almost 2 decades now. We all have parents, and I know I love my parents more than anything else in this world. And because of that, Golden Home Services makes sure we care for your parents as if they were our parents. Call 678-242-0084 anytime, or visit goldenhomeservices.com to select from our range of affordable home care services.
I'm Tia Severino, and you've been watching The People's Truth. Today I'm chatting with Hina Maria about the psychology of oppression, and now we're going to be looking at how exactly can we awaken to reality? What do we got to do to wake up? As Hina has suggested, it's time to step out of denial. Stockholm Syndrome, we got to recognize that we're really willingly cooperating with our oppressors. We got to bust this bubble of positive lies. This tale they've spun for us. It sounds good, but it's not really good for us. So tell us, Henna, what does it mean to really awaken to reality?
Yeah, I think the first key word is responsibility. So understanding that every single one of us plays an equally important role in the creation of our reality. So this is a collective place, and whatever each of us do or don't do has a consequence. So I think we have to go back to the very foundation of what reality is and how does it work. So once again, a natural law, the law of the universe, we can understand that whatever we do will be done to us. So as Christ was teaching, we reap what we sow. So wow, I feel like as a collective, we're stuck in the plane of effects, meaning we're looking at what's already been done, right, without ever having the wisdom to go back into the plane of causality, realizing is what did we do that led us for this consequence to manifest. So if we are constantly, destroying our outer nature and our inner bodies, it means that we are signaling that it's okay for us to be destroyed. So if we eat, unhealthy foods, we are already given the signal that we don't care about our bodies. Our bodies are not precious to us, or if we're destroying nature, now we are given the signal that our own nature can be destroyed. If we are enslaving and torturing other, animals by the billions, then we are again saying that those of us who are weaker, and, some may think that they are higher than us, then we are almost like spiritually agreeing that they can abuse us if they so please. So it's like we are creating in the spirit realm, we are creating the causality for this to manifest. I mean, look at what we do to animals, the constant systematic microchipping, vaccination, torturing, raping by the billions. That is their system. So now what's happening to us? They're starting to talk about microchipping us. They are already vaccinating us, but they want to vaccinate us even more. Right. So I feel like we have to come to realize, wait a minute, we have created this mess by behaving in this way. Like, let's pull back. Let's begin to live by the golden rule again. Let love be our guiding light in all that we do.
So what you're saying is that the contract begins with us, and in order to break the contract, we have to change what we're doing. So really, you're channeling Mahatma Gandhi in his statement to be the change that you wish to see in the world. So we really have to look at what we're agreeing to through our actions. Now, we're not talking about words here. We're talking about actions, what we're agreeing to. So when we are consuming too much sugar, when we're consuming too much salt, when we're consuming empty calories, when we're consuming food that's laden with pesticides and herbicides, when we're consuming meat that's produced in these type of conditions that where the animals are basically can't even turn around, and they're standing in their own feces, and they are born to breed, to feed, to die. When we're picking up the bottle of alcohol and we're drinking to excess, we're agreeing to being abused. We are saying, I do not deserve to be treated with respect, and I do not deserve this vessel that the Creator has gifted me with. And so we're basically signing our own contract, our own death contract, and we are allowing all of this. Now, would you say that the things that we are consuming visually, orally, the things that we're listening to, what we're viewing, I'm thinking of things like horror films. I'm thinking of things like pornography. I'm thinking of some music which may not be spiritually uplifting and good for you. Of course, now people, I love rock and roll, and so it's gonna be hard for me to give up the rock and roll. But would you say that it's also the consumption of that kind of stuff is also a part of that social contract that we're agreeing to? Living a certain way. By living a certain way, we are agreeing to living under their domain, under their ownership. So, like I said in the introduction, that they are telling us what they're doing to us in these movies, in the music, in the books that they read, the fiction, the nonfiction. They're telling us what they're doing. So, open your eyes, and if you don't want to be ruled over by like this, the first thing you have to do is have awareness. So that's really the focus of this segment is becoming aware. You have to become aware that you are, by living and consuming in these ways, you are entering into a social contract. Would you agree with that?
And a spiritual contract.
Spiritual contract.
Definitely. And, it's like we talk about diet, but in the Amazon, when you speak with the indigenous people, when you say the word diet to them, they think it's everything you take in. So they don't think a diet is something you eat.
Right.
It's what you consume. So you're absolutely right in talking about how things affect our consciousness. So we can think of it, whatever we take in, we can ask ourselves, is it harmonizing for us? Is it increasing our peace? Is it bringing us joy? Is it inspiring us? Or is it contracting our consciousness?
Right.
Is it putting us into a state of anxiety? Is it creating chaos in our mind? I mean, if we watch horror and like pornography and violence like day in and day out, we're annihilating the sacred heart of humanity right within from our own hearts. We're telling a story that suffering doesn't matter.
Right.
We become immune to it.
Wow.
And so is it any wonder that we forget that there are still millions of children starving all the time? We all know this, but it seems like nothing's ever been done to it. What about the people in the Amazon who are literally being culled? Their culture is being annihilated, and there's a genocide happening. Nobody talks about this, and it's all because they are trying to take all the land, all the territories away from these people, because 80% of the untouched land of this earth is under the guidance and under the custody of the indigenous peoples. They have massive amounts of land that they're caring for because they still know how to live in harmony with nature. So these big corporations are going out there and they're destroying their lands and they're killing them in the way. But we don't hear about this. So there's this emotional, our emotions are being directed into these voids of Hollywood movies of fictitious characters and their fake suffering. Why do we need to give our energy to that when we could think about the people who are really suffering in this life? And what I just want to say as well, like along with responsibility, I think there comes freedom, because as long as we stay in this state of victimhood and we believe that we are infinitely a victim of circumstance, it leads us to a profound sense of powerlessness in our lives. It leads us to perpetuated suffering because we feel that we cannot affect or have any influence over reality. But as soon as we say, wait a minute, I can choose how I respond to this, not react from a trigger, but how do I respond? If I respond to consciousness, suddenly, wow, I'm empowered. I have freedom in here. I can choose.
Right.
And so even difficult things, like I would invite people who are allergic to thinking about vaccine damage, is because maybe they vaccinated their own children and they don't want to acknowledge that. Well, guess what? There is freedom on the other side when we do realize these things are truth, because then it means that you're in a place of power where you may be able to help someone else not to do that to their children or family members. So it's a gift once we just go over the threshold of feeling fear of having made a mistake or being guilty. It's not about that. We're all doing our best all the time. So it's just all about having also forgiveness and grace towards ourselves.
Right.
Be willing to learn.
Well, one of the things that you said in your video, the first video that I caught of you, which really got my attention, was you said people are waking up. And I just had those images of the protests and the flash mobs with the people are emboldened now with this coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, nonsense, hoax, hysteria, propaganda, et cetera, et cetera.
Charade, yeah.
They thought the coronavirus was going to be the thing that was going to shut the anti-vaxxers down for good. They thought the coronavirus was going to be so scary, so deadly, so phenomenally terrifying that we would just all lay down, set aside all of our objections and say, please, where do you want to inject me? Here? No, it's had the opposite effect. People are waking up now more than ever before. I've had more people who were pro-vaccine, who thought I was a complete conspiracy nut, come up to me and say, is it time to panic yet? People are waking.
Yeah.
People are waking up. People are we're taken to the streets. We are now, because we're being so censored on social media, we are taken to the streets. We are going up to people in public, in person, masks be damned, and we are telling them the truth, and people are hungry for the truth. Yeah. They are desperate for the truth. They want an answer to why the entire world has gone insane. I mean, we're looking at the entire globe shut down over something that appears to be not even as bad as the common flu. Maybe it's a really, really bad cold, okay? It might be a really bad cold for someone for which any virus would be a death sentence, okay? And yet we have seen global compliance. We have seen complete shutdown of industry. We've seen think about this. What did the Romans come up with to keep people from rioting? Bread and circuses. They knew you can't have lots of people crammed together in high concentrations and not keep them entertained, because they will go bananas. And so they came up with the bread and circuses, the gladiator fights and the such. And so for 4 months now, we have had no bread and circuses across the entire globe. The entire thing is shut down. No sporting events, no concerts, no bars, no restaurants, no movie theaters, no parties, no conferences. None of the things that people do to entertain themselves, to blow off steam, are available to them. And it's been 4 months solid like this in the United States. And we wonder why. I think that they were expecting us to be rioting before then. They had to come up with this police brutality incident, whether real or staged. And I will say that because, I'm sorry, I don't know for sure that it wasn't staged. And even if it wasn't staged, they've certainly taken full advantage of the situation in order to just drive this race war propaganda. But I really believe they thought we would be rioting in the streets after a few months of lockdown, and then we have this, looks like they want to perpetually bring up race war. So what we'll do before we get too dark is we're going to take our final break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about my favorite thing, which is solutions. And Hannah is going to share with us her project Summer of Light coming up this summer. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
The time to to defy the modern agenda is now. UI Media Network presents Frequency Wars, an explosive new series that examines contentious subject matter pursuing us beyond our five senses. This weekly series discovers the intricacies of imposing issues that challenge our daily existence and question humanity. Provocative and intriguing, we confront the issues and conflicts affecting us on a global scale. Manipulation, manpower, or others simply controlling your mentality. The commentary and guests will shift our paradigm and defy the status quo.
In 1979, the so-called father of Israeli intelligence, a guy called Issa Harel, told an American journalist that there was going to be an Islamic attack on New York's biggest building.
Bill Gates, he is publicly saying we should consider microchipping all of humanity so we can track their vaccination status.
What you see in movies like The Avengers, that's actually true.
What will you believe? Frequency Wars challenges perception to take back your sovereignty. The power and purpose are greater than any of us, but we will test it all. Frequency Wars, the next revolution.
You're watching The People's Truth. I'm your host, Tia Severino. If you're enjoying this show, you'll want to head over to UI Media Network for more uplifting, thought-provoking, and insightful programs. Tune in on uimedianetwork.org and live on Facebook, YouTube, Spreaker, and almost all of your favorite podcasting platforms. With the social media overlords censoring the truth at every opportunity, we need your help getting these shows out to the public. So please share this content with your friends, family, and wider social network following. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. So please keep tuning in to get the uncensored, unscripted truth. Now, back to our guest today, Hina Maria. We've been talking about the psychology of oppression. Now it's time for my favorite part, which is solutions. I always say you need to spend less of your time on defining the problem and more of your time on finding the solution. So I'm really happy that you have solutions to offer, Hina. And you've been working on a project called the Summer of Light. I think this is one constructive effort towards realizing our true potential as beings with creator consciousness. So we're going to talk about now how to prove you're not a slave, you're not a robot, what sovereignty means, the Summer of Light, getting out onto the streets with joy-based activism, empowering people with knowledge, building bridges, morphic resonance, quantum effect, 100th monkey effect. Wow, that's a lot right there. I'll let you take it away.
Well, yeah, I would just say, to prove that you are not a slave or a robot, you have to exercise your free will. So it can be a bit of a scary terrain for many people because they've lived in this belief of acquiescing and obeying and, complying. But, it's time to shake that up now and realize your sacred value, your unique role in the whole, your infinite potential, and put that into concrete action, because that is the final step in manifestation. We have our dreams and we have our thoughts, but it needs to come into this realm through our actions. So Summer of Light is something that came to a group of us activists from Finland, talking about how do we communicate everything that we want to address now in this crazy, chaotic time in a way that it would truly penetrate into the soul level of people. And so immediately we knew that violence is definitely not the answer, or any kind of angry fighting, because, when you fight something, it feeds those lower negative entities and beings, because they feed off hatred and fear and all of this stuff. So we need to be able to transcend that. And so what came through is it needs to be joy-based activism, celebration-based activism, where we empower people with knowledge. So how this happens is that there are groups forming currently all around the world of people who feel like, you know what, I've got something to say, and I've got something to offer, and I believe that we do have the power to transform this world. So people who have authentic inspiration and faith for the betterment of all of humanity are now getting together and starting to plan events. So there's people creating street activism. Like, for example, tomorrow, our group here in Andalusia in southern Spain are going to go out on the streets with our Summer of Light t-shirts. We're going to play beautiful music, ethnic music that is really just laced with that community spirit and joy. And we're going to be talking to people. And the idea is that we meet people in a heart-centered way. So we don't go there with placards and saying we're against this or we're against that, because that, again, can just create a lot of conflict, resistance, and separation. We go there to say, hey, what do you think about what's been going on? And we engage with people. And then when you feel a connection, then we're like, okay, well, would you like to know about what wearing a mask actually does to your health? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, here I got a flyer. And then we've got written there, you know, the lower oxygen levels, the increased carbon dioxide levels. You know, we talk about all these things, how it can lead to bacterial infection in the lungs, prolonged usage. It can even use, you know, loss of consciousness. People have crashed their cars wearing a mask. And so we got, you know, facts on a sheet of paper then that we can give to people. Another one is how to boost your immune system naturally, because this knowledge has been lost, and it actually hasn't been lost. It's been purposefully demonized and annihilated, you know, along with all the natural healers that got burnt at the stakes. And now, of course, they've made it all illegal, all as much as they can. They are trying to deny any existence of any cure for cancers, or they're just wanting people to be, you know, slaves to the pharma industry, of course. So what we want is people to awaken that, wait a minute, you got local herbs wherever you are growing, like here in Andalusia. It's like the mountains, when you walk, it's just fragrant. So we're going to actually be bringing some local herbs to the streets and have people guessing what they are and what are their medicinal properties.
Wow, that's...
Yeah, so we want to bring beautiful scent to the street, beautiful music. We're going to have our playlist and our radios with us playing beautiful music. And so it's all about just empowering people and creating bridges, coming together and having that heart-to-heart connection to remind us that we're all part of that same human family and we're all sisters and brothers.
Well, it sounds like we need to be having Summer of Light events all over the world this summer.
All over.
So how do people, let's say here in the southern part of the United States, what we call the Deep South down here in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, let's just say we wanted to do something like that here. How would, for example, and I'm sure that there are dozens of folks that are tuning in right now on the various platforms that we're out on, how would somebody go about getting involved and, say, planning their own Summer of Light event? How do they get in touch with you, and how do they get involved?
Just our website, summeroflight.com, has all the concept there, and it's got a list of things, ideas on what people can do just to ignite that inspiration. So all it actually requires is yourself and someone else. It can be just 2 people, or it can be 100 people, however many are inspired. And for you to think about what is it that you want to talk to people about. So some people may say, okay, I'm a passionate, you know, permaculture enthusiast. I could do a workshop on that. We could just go to the central plaza of our town and just bring some pots of plants with us or whatever, have some music and have a little sign saying, talk to us about the joy of growing your food in harmony with nature.
Wow.
And honestly, it can be whatever you want. This is what I love about this movement, is that it's inviting people to take leadership. It's inviting people to realize that they have the freedom to actually do whatever they want.
Wow.
So just the 3 main principles that we've highlighted for the movement is health, freedom, and harmony. So if you can resonate with those things and you got something to share along those lines, do whatever you like. It's totally an invitation to free, joy-based activism.
Amazing. I want to have a Summer of Light event here in the Atlanta area. And so I'm gonna get in touch with you through your summeroflight.com website. You also have the Dawn of Peace organization, which is at Dawn, DAWN of Peace, PEACE.org, dawnofpeace.org. Can you just touch really briefly? We've got about 4 minutes left. Can you just briefly let people know what Dawn of Peace is? And also, you are on Facebook at Dawn of Peace, the Dawn of Peace. Can you just briefly?
Hannah Maria. Yeah. So Dawn of Peace is a creative community. So me and my husband and some of our friends are in that community. And what we're doing is we're creating different forms of activism. So this Summer of Light is part of what we and some others have come to give birth to as a vision. So what we do is we try and develop ways to activate people. And so we've got different causes that we like to support, sovereignty, animal rights, human rights, natural law. And what Dawn of Peace is about is understanding that any kind of activism, to make it effective, requires a lot of inner work. So we have a very spiritual heart at it. Wow. So we invite all our activists to understand that to cease any wars in the outside world, we have to first cease the wars within.
Wow.
So it's a very holistic and spiritual approach to activism, but what we are liking to invite people to take part in.
Amazing. Really quick for folks that want to go check out some of your other videos, you are on YouTube under the name Hannah Maria, correct?
Yep.
And so you guys go binge on her videos because she's binge worthy for sure. Oh my gosh. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you. I'm so glad I came across your video and reached out to you, and we've made this neat little connection. I hope to have you back on the show one day. Maybe in the fall we can catch up, kind of see how the activism went over the summer. And with that said, it is time to kind of wrap up the show here. But I want to remind everybody that The People's Truth is a bi-weekly show. So we are every other Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And that is probably the way that it will remain throughout this summer. But hopefully coming in the fall will be perhaps increasing to a weekly show. So we need your feedback. You gotta, give us your feedback on whether or not you really like this show, you like the content, so we know whether or not the demand is there for a weekly show. I'm down for it. So hopefully I will see you guys back here on July 10th when we will have episode 3 of The People's Truth. Until then, everybody take care. Love you. Be good to yourself and be good to each other.
Whoa. My mind has officially been blown wide open. As yours? Keep sharing the show and join us in our mission to educate the world with uncensored truth. As they say, together we are stronger, our voices louder, and the synergy of our actions more powerful. If you have any comments or questions for Tia and her guests, send us an email at contact@uimedianetwork.org. Until then, stay safe, stay tuned. The UI Media Network and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.